This filming is going to be addressing one of the major characters in the Nyy'xai storyline, and that is the Hidden Grove Guardian. Now, I'm going out of order now. We've now realized we're doing a series. So it turns out that the High Stakes Priestess was going to be part of a series that's going to include all the 8 major characters, your 4 conscious characters, your 4 unconscious characters played by your other. Having said that, the High Stakes Priestess was actually the 4th character because that's the vibe for the Nyy'xai. Now we could, of course, fix that now by going to the front starting with the knee, but we're not going to do that, no, because Nyy'xai wants to do the Hidden Grove Guardian next, and my other says that that's the way it should go, jump around as she likes. So that's what we're doing. But I do need to give some context. I have a question, Nyy'xai, do you mind if I share a little bit about what we talked at lunch today? About your...
Yes.
Okay. Would you mind actually quickly just giving a little of the scene of your dream for them?
So, this has to do with why I'm focusing on, or why I was asking about Hidden Grove Guardian next?
Oh, no, just actually the dream that you put in the email today.
Oh, the dream
Is that okay?
Okay. Yes, I had several dreams today. The first one had to do with me being a Nyy'xai boy for some reason, kind of an Indiana Jones-esque sort of character where I was running away from bad guys and I was on a train and I escaped the train into these deep woods and I befriended actually one of the bad guys' accomplices, which was a boy. They had gotten to do that with them.
And this was not this was a boy that maybe at least appeared to possibly have become good, maybe? Is that...
Yes.
Okay.
So he defected and became my friend.
Gotcha.
Or so I think. I'm always a little suspicious being a Nyy'xai boy that this
Right.
person, whatever. And then we met a Nyy'xai girl who helped us out by giving us money, and then she disappeared, and I, as the Nyy'xai boy, am very attracted to her, and I'm not sure when she's going to make an appearance again, but I have a feeling that she's going to find me. And so the boy and I are sitting at the campfire, talking about our adventures and planning our next moves.
Excellent.
So that was dream number 1. Dream number 2, I was actually on vacation with my family in some kind of American wilderness park like Yosemite or Yellowstone or something like that. And I'm having visions of a dark, evil sorceress who is kind of, for some reason, I can see all of her next moves before they happen, and one of them is she sends all these gigantic, exotic animals, like not at all wilderness animals like bears and stuff that are native to that area, but like zebras and giraffes and stuff, and they're going around like eating people's heads and like copulating with each other and all this crazy stuff. Yeah, so there's like mayhem in this tiny village in Yosemite or wherever the hell it is.
Okay.
And my family and I are on vacation, and I have a Nyy'xai dad and a Nyy'xai sister, and they're kind of like freaking out, and they're trying their best to go into survival mode, but you know, they're kind of limited at this point in their development. And then my mom and my sister and I were also scared, but I was the only one who wasn't showing that I was scared. Even though I knew that, okay, we need to do something, so I thought, A, I could hide my family, but that would make us like a non-NPC, as we call it.
So basically you felt a connection to the story unfolding that you're not going to be able to do that.
That's not an option because I have this tie to this sorceress somehow, because I can anticipate her moves, and she highlighted a trail down the mountain that she's actually coming down, and she's halfway there now. So her giant, evil, copulating, like, animal army is like, eating everybody alive, and she's halfway down, and I wake up going, I need to do something about this, I have to intervene, but I don't have these powers yet because I'm human, so...
Excellent. So we were discussing this at lunch today, and it actually fits very nicely into this, so I'll be using it for Nyy'xai's team of mine, which is great.
Cool.
Basically, there's a recurring theme of these major 4 characters, which is the spirit force creature, and that is the fact that as the child, Nyy'xai is able to both be the boy, to both be herself, to both be also the sorceress, or at least know what she's like, and her trajectory. That all actually comes from her knee. We're going to get into that more in detail in the filming on that, but that comes from that character. This character she can play as a young girl. You can also play the same character later on as a more mature hero. Does that make sense? But always it'll start with the spirit force creature, which gives a awareness of these magical going-ons. So she's very aware. And the various characters, that cross-connecting ability. Next, and we'll focus on today, is the Hidden Grove Guardian. Nyy'xai is aware of the danger to the boy, the Nyy'xai, both the fact that there's a general danger of the woods, but there's also the danger, if I'm not mistaken, of the betrayal of the other child. And that's a very Nyy'xai thing to be able to watch out for. That's a classic Nyy'xai thing. So there is a concern possibly that could be an issue. And then there's also an awareness of the vulnerability of those attached to her, of the family, that they are attached to her. There's value there, but they're not going to be a strength in this encounter. They're going to have to be someone that's watched out for. So kind of like precious cargo that can't help you much. And even, this is key, sometimes can hurt you. It can be cargo that actually messes up and actually causes you to get in trouble. So the Hidden Grove Guardian is aware of these very, 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 very valuable things. So in this case, you're seeing 3 very valuable things, which are the Nyy'xai very often associates itself with strongly. One is the boy, the Nyy'xai, in this case. Could be a Nyy'xai female, but obviously Nyy'xai being a female Nyy'xai, her other is going to take that form. And it's positioning the other, if you'll notice, in a very young form. That's done on purpose to help heighten the Hidden Grove Guardian's awareness that this is something that is of concern to her, because Nyy'xai being second, there's a more of a caginess than, for example, being a Nyy'xai. So the boy having those issues, that is immediately going to call to the Nyy'xai of a Nyy'xai. Like, The next thing is the family. The family is very valuable. So the fact that it has been put into play by her spirits in this storyline, that's definitely a move that her Synamnia is doing, her spirits are doing to highlight heroic time. Because it can be more like general fun time when you're in the Spirit Force creature mode, which we'll get to more another time, but there has to be Nyy'xai there, but the main focus is on the gathering. In here, there's going to be a shift focusing more on what has to be stood up for. Okay, so already seeing the Nyy'xai boy as a possible stand up for, watching his back. The family, also they're loved, but they're not very helpful, so they have to be watched out for. And then I would say nature, because Nyy'xai also have a very profound association with nature, hence spirit force creature. And so what the sorceress is doing is going to be very alarming. This is going to be sort of Avatar style, like the land being raped. The Nyy'xai don't like the land being raped. That really upsets them. So that is something. The totality of nature is basically being offended, raped, toxified. So those are 3 very, very powerful calls to the Nyy'xai. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I'm going to go back to the Nyy'xai more, but I'll just go on real quickly and touch on the other 2 to give some context. Is, as I mentioned in Nyy'xai, just for the filming actually, is that the next one, the Z, is going to be the righteous intervener. And this has a lot to do with perhaps protecting or challenging the Nyy'xai boy. Also the parents in this scenario, in the family, they may need to be challenged, maybe not doing the right thing. So that's what that will come in at that point. We're not going to focus on it right now. Also perhaps calling out or challenging that other boy who may or may not be good, putting some sort of test down that boy must or child must pass to prove that they are good. Those are the kinds of things the righteous intervener will be doing. And then, as we mentioned in the last filming, which is the high stakes priestess, that's for when it gets as serious gets. And this has a lot to do with the Fumasta character or spirit form for the Nyy'xai. And the sorceress, this dark sorceress, very much strikes myself and also Nyy'xai as a dark Fumasta, which is like the worst of all villains. It basically is a villainous character for Emojo that has gotten up the spirit form ladder as far as purification. It's not gotten past purification, but it's gotten everything else. So your Darth Vader types, your Sauron types, for example, anything where it's like a bad person that is extremely masterful, the Emperor, anything like that. They're very great. The Wicked Witch of the West. These are very, very powerful creatures, and they can command great energies, and they can command others to serve them, similar like a Lich Lords in various role-playing games where they can make other creatures serve them. So there's a power and a majesty, if you will, but it's a dark majesty. And that's important to note because you found the dark sorceress a bit intimidating. And the reason why you could read her next moves and that intimidates you is because you're basically seeing a creature like you at having gone wrong, but at an extremely powerful state. And now the only kind of creature that could heal, could fight, it could be either way, fighting or healing, but could take care of this wound in the land, would be a proper Nyy'xai Fumasta that goes all the way to getting purification and anointment. Those are the rituals required to take out a dark Fumasta. So that will be daunting in the beginning, and kind of like Luke versus Darth Vader, you kind of take a circuitous route to pick up some friends and some training and some experience points and level up as a hero before tackling that. But make no mistake, you are destined to handle this dark sorceress and to kick her off her pedestal and say, no, 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 this is a heroic land, because there's a hero here. It's me. Now I'll focus more on just the Nyy'xai, or that aspect of the story. As mentioned before, there's always a compound relationship, so you have to understand Nyy'xai in the context of all the other three powers, but notably Nyi. So even the role of Nyy'xai is Nyy'xai with Nyi, and now we're going to be more specific with that compound, it's a Nyy'xai compound, which means even in the role of the Sacred Grove Guardian, we say Hidden Grove Guardian, and that's because sacredness is very mobile with the Nyy'xai. That's important. This is different and distinguishes it from the Nyy'xai Nyi. Is sacredness is something that has a bit of a, it's as sacred as it is to a Nyy'xai Nyi. It's just it's placed different as far as where it is in the storyline. So the sacredness often has a strong cloak and dagger quality to it that's not present, for example, in the Nyy'xai Nyi. The Nyy'xai Nyi is going to be more the Ji passing certain trials directly, with the Nyy'xai looking on directly, and then you either achieve it or not, and then the lady gives the favor from the tower. This is going to be more, this is a big probably quality of the Hidden Grove Guardian, is where the grove is will be a big issue. The Hidden Grove Guardian herself must actually find it. That's why for the Hidden Grove Guardian, her first character is the Nyi. It's the spirit force creature, because she has to be a native of that land in order to even find it. So that's important. So the first kind of beginning of that character is being able to find where others can't. For example, I think a very strong metaphor for this would be, for example, in Avatar. The fact that the Nyy'xai female main character, she knew where the secret places were. And I got the impression that not everyone knew that was something that she'd been taught, she'd been specially trained for. She was going to move into the role of her mother. She was going to be a medicine woman of sorts, a priestess of sorts, and so she had to know where that was. But that's not something, this is very crucial to Hidden Grove Guardian. It's a different strategy. It's very pronounced in Avatar. It's very much in the Jez story here. It's not walling it up with impenetrable Nyy'xai defense, which is also noble, but that's more Nyy'xai Alpha. It's more vulnerable. It's more vulnerable, and the defense is the hiding of it. And that's very, very a key component to the Hidden Grove Guardian, is you protect the Nyy'xai by hiding it. And this can get Nyy'xai into trouble, which is why I realize you know this character, because sometimes it gets so cagey, you think the idea is to like hide it and never show it ever, 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 ever. Or never to give it over, or to transfer it, or to be devoted with it. But that's not true. But it is proper to have a cageness about it, to have a cloak and dagger. Don't let it be seen until you're sure it's right. That's why the other has Nyi and Ji. The ability to see the special thing going on, and then, secondly, do the proper Ji thing, showing that you saw. You saw the magic thing going on, you realize, I'm dealing with some kind of fairy, and I need to do the right thing in order to be allowed to be taken to this hidden grove. Because Hidden Grove will be almost like an island that is like a mirage. Either you are being taken there by native, because Nyi-Alphas are native to these magical places, so that will only be done if you are proved worthy. So that is part of it, is a Nyy'xai still wants to have worthiness proven to it, just like a Nyy'xai Nyi. But the worthiness is going to have a much higher emphasis on the sight, wisdom and truth of vision, and visionary drive, and those kinds of things that are very particular to a Nyi-Ji. That is going to stand out tremendously as being worthy. So independence of mind, those are things that the Nyi, the spirit force creature, is going to look for to see if it's something or someone or some situation worthy of showing or producing. This is key too, is we mentioned before, like the Nyy'xai Nyi is like a tower mane, and the Nyi are the birds that come in. As opposed to Nyy'xai, it's a flock of birds, and where they land temporarily, like a sacred tree, that's where it is. So it's almost like wherever the birds land, if it's an appropriate tree, can temporarily, this is unique to the Nyy'xai, and I guess also the Vijay would have this quality, temporarily it's a sacred grove. So another part of the hiddenness is temporariness. It's not a permanent one. It's like sacred grove for this moment and it's gone. So there's a mirage quality and there's a blinking quality. This is very much I've seen a lot of Celtic tales where the druid guy goes out and is interacting with the fairies. Often there's a mirage quality and often there's a temporary quality, which means they have to act then and do the right thing, or that's it, it's gone. There is, similar to the Nyy'xai, a blessing. That's a great power that the Hidden Grove Guardian has. It is a healing, it is a blessing, but oftentimes because it's second, it's heavily infused with Nyi. So there is a healing quality, like the Nyy'xai, and the Nyy'xai has this too, but as a second note. But more primary is a giving of luck. So both the Datarmantics give luck and healing. That's kind of they have a lot of powers like that for like an adventuring group. They give a lot of luck and a lot of healing. But for the Nyy'xai, a lot of the healing will involve the giving of the luck, the giving of the magic token to allow a person or a situation to move out of a stuck position. That's often how it'll be done. Is the Nyy'xai will give a blessing that allows for people or situations that had lost their movement to basically get out of jail free card. Does that make sense? The metaphysical get out of jail free card.
That's awesome.
Yes, and it looks like, for example, that there may be a chance that this situation with the boy may be that. So I'm not going to put it in your mind specifically because it could be anything. I'm going to give you like two examples that are actually quite opposite. But either way, the Hidden Grove Guardian could tell here is the friend, or seeming friend possibly, we don't know at this point, could, through machinations of conduct, put the Nyy'xai in danger that the Nyy'xai is unable to get out of, because that's a spell that traps Ji mojos. And the only way to get free from that spell oftentimes is to have a superior, higher Jai call out, because Ji will always defer to the highest, noblest Jai calling out. So if a Ji user, a Ji mojo, in the case of a Nyy'xai, it has been moonblinked, they've been taken over by some sort of false conduct restraints. They can be freed from these restraints. That's another one too, is in Nyy'xai, there's healing, and they do heal a lot too, but there's also a lot of getting people out of jail, getting them out of chains, getting them from being possessed. There's a lot of those qualities to it, so a lot of like a magic amulet that like lets spells be broken. Yeah, magic tokens that come from Nyi, and then a blessing is given. Yes, so a magic blessing. To give an opposite side, so I don't put that storyline on you, it could also be, for example, the Nyy'xai themselves. They could be paranoid. They actually could start thinking that the friend who is a friend isn't, because some things turn in the story that seem suspicious, and because that person's former association, the Nyy'xai goes into uber paranoid mode, and maybe he's going to start to make a Ji mistake. The Nyy'xai in Hidden Grove Guardian, she could see this unfolding and present herself as a creature of virtue and sort of put a balm on that insanity. So there's a healing quality, but there's a great deal of healing-like insanity involved with the Nyy'xai, and understanding when things are going to spiral out of control in a bad way. Now, Nyi naturally likes things to spiral out of control. That's fun, as long as they're not going to hurt. So the Jai can naturally sense for itself when hurt's out there as a spirit force creature. But sometimes you may be in danger, or the grove may be in danger. If that happens, then the Nyy'xai Hidden Grove Guardian is supposed to hide the grove physically, like say an avatar, or hide the grove metaphorically within themselves. So that's why Nyy'xai make very good spies, like Nyy'xai, is they can be cagey like that if necessary. They realize, my heart is in danger here, but I still need to be out in the forest, as it were. But this ability can go further, particularly if you have to go up to a Fumashi level, which this dream you're talking about seems like it wants you to, is others. Others can be in danger of not being able to handle that. And so you can bestow that on those that are worthy. But there's a danger. When you bestow, because of the way Nyy'xai works, is you can't bestow without an empathetic bond being created. So there's a danger being trapped. So that's why the Nyy'xai Secret Agent and the Nyy'xai Hidden Grove Guardian, they don't want their true cause necessarily to be known. They don't want their true allegiance to their sacred groves to be known unless it's right. So this is key. They're not supposed to keep it hidden forever, but they are supposed to keep it hidden until the right moment for the right person. Also, the Hidden Grove, third element. Hidden, temporary. I already mentioned this before, I'm going to highlight now for triple threat here. Mobile. That's another thing, is the Nyy'xai also has a hidden sort of compass bearing in them, but it's very movement oriented because of the knee over it, of where the sacred grove's going to be. For example, you seeing the Nyy'xai boy, that thing unfolding, that's actually your Nyy'xai tickling from your knee of where a possible sacred grove moment's going to be, and knowing to go there. That's another way of finding out if someone's worthy. If they have a sight, they'll be able to see the Hidden Grove. If they have heroic conduct, they will do the right things when it presents itself momentarily. And even more heroic conduct is they'll go through arduous journey. You will expect that of your Nyy'xai. Arduous journey to get to where sacred grove is going to temporarily present itself, almost like a rainbow. There will be a rainbow over there in 3 days' time, and I need to gather all the heroes to be there in 3 days' time. Heroes will be at that rainbow, wherever that is, in 3 days' time. So there is, with the Hidden Grove Guardian, the grove has a hidden effect, but also kind of with that is a temporary and mobile. And if it isn't implied, I'll put a fourth one there. Unique. There's almost always, because the Nyy'xai is the other that's supposed to do the right things to get here oftentimes, ritual. There's usually very, very, often this is made as a joke in movies sometimes, like that one with Marisa Tomei, where she's looking for a dream man, because she got some fortune cookie or some shit, I don't know, some tarot reader, said these certain parameters. Long story short is the Nyy'xai and Lucille Ball, she gets some idea in her head, it has to be like this for it to be special. And so, you know, Rookie is stuck with having to make it special. That makes it great. But long story short is that there will often be rituals, like one-off, one-time engagement rituals that need to be done a certain way or you didn't do it right. So often it is hidden, it is temporary, it moves, and each time it shows up is often a one-time thing. In fact, the more powerful the ritual, the more unique it will be. Does that make sense? And so that's very different than, say, the Chinese tower. Now they do change as well, but it's often the challenges the knight must do keep changing. But here, actually, the tower itself changes because the tower is underneath the knee, so it can take the form of a temporary location. It can take the form. This is key of it as well. The Nyy'xai knee blessing often, because of the way they're wired, the overtness of it has a lot to do with the blessing. Now, Nyy'xai often need to be overt as well. Sometimes the authenticity of Nyy'xai requires that. But there's also a pronounced element of their storyline where they give hidden blessings, where they let the one character know who's an undercover cop, or at least she thinks he is, and she tests him to make sure, and he does something that shows only a cop would know that. Then she shows she's actually like Interpol or something. So that's a showing of, I got you back, but only if certain things. So a lot of times, like I mentioned, there's a very cloak and dagger kind of quality to it but she does need to do that. If that person could be strength, her knee is correct to try to connect those heroic advantages. That would, for example, you're dealing with an undercover drug cartel or a dark sorceress, you need more friends, you need more power. So if this hero or heroes in the environment are heroes, you want to let them know. But it doesn't mean you want the other people to know. Does that make sense? You are a native spirit force creature. You're natively cagey. So there's a lot also with that's the fifth element. Yes, unique as well. A connection of the tower experience, of the healing, of the blessing, while others are around, yet they are not aware it's taking place. That's very unique, I think, to Nyy'xai and Nyy'xai. Nyy'xai more because of the interpretiveness, but still having the Nyy'xai second, to where there's like there's a hidden exchange, which is sort of like, I see you and we're like actually on a team together here and we're actually good guys. But then there's actually a touching of the hand for reassurance without others knowing it. There is a sliding across of a thing that's going to help person out in the exchange they're having in the environment without the rest of the environment going on. So there's a lot of caginess, but noble cage. So it is noble, but it's recognizing that the energies may be so incredible that you have to use your knee to surf and then get the nobility, the Nyy'xai virtue in as you can. The sacred flying bird. The sacred flying bird, I believe you have one. What's that name?
Oh, Persinia?
That bird?
The glowing bird?
Yes.
Yeah, it's the German forest traveling bird.
Okay, this is a classic metaphor for the spirit force creature, the bird itself. But if you study those storylines, there's many of those in many cultures, there's also that bird coming down, lighting on a tree, coming down on an arm, coming down to shine on something. So the magic bird coming down to, because what's in the air, it's more of a guide. Does that make sense? Almost like it's a flying star. But or like a flying fairy, but kind of like a fairy as well. Fairies are kind of in this family. If it decides it likes you, if the bird lands on that person's shoulder in the story, the chance of that one being like destined for heroic things are very, very high. So that's another one you can see that unlike the Nyy'xai Tower of, say, Nyy'xai Alpha, where the incredible, and this is wonderful about them, the immovability of the tower is at the forefront of the heroic storyline. Here, movement is more at the forefront, so the Hidden Grove Guardian will often be proactive at looking at humans. I've mentioned that they pick the proper tree for their birds to light on, and that makes that tree temporarily a sacred grove. Oftentimes there will be a choosing of a person or persons to do that too. And if the bird, the sacred bird, the magic bird, goes down there, then that actually is singling them out as being a sacred vessel temporarily, or at least maybe for the rest of their life being blessed in that way, being singled out for that magical anointment, I guess if that's what I'm saying. So there's a lot of these kind of creatures that have that magical anointment kind of quality. I think both that, and there's also the phoenix bird, which I think is more of a Nyy'xai one, but also is related. Those magical bird metaphors, I think, are strongly associated with adaptive romantics. So that's something I know you like to study history and such. I think there's probably a lot of different cultures that have the rebirthing flaming bird, and then also particularly the magic bird of light that guides heroes, and then occasionally will actually land and either give wisdom in the ear, that's common, give a blessing, drop off a magic feather, or something that lets them get into fairyland. So often that's a very common theme. Now here we get to the cagey part where it can get a little rough. And when we talk about the Daryu filming, we can mention this more. But I would mention in its beautiful way now, because it's meant to be really, really heroic, is there's also the Johnny also has this to some extent too, but not as proactive. It's more siren-like. But there are creatures, fairy-like creatures, that hypnotize and intoxicate travelers. This is also power of the Hidden Grove Guardian. When the Hidden Grove aligns with something that the Nyy'xai wants it to, sometimes it even doesn't want to, which we'll get into with the mergings of it, but there is a binding, a deep sacred binding, and this can be used by Nyy'xai to actually get secrets out of people in their little secret agent missions and to break people's hearts gratuitously. So that's true, but the way it's meant to be is a love charm. It is a continuation of, or heightening of, the magic amulet that they can give, the magic token of luck, and usually the luck is associated with you're a good person. So if you're a good person, there can be a staying on the shoulder, there can be like a petting, there can be like a communing between like two creatures that aren't native to one another, but they like one another, kind of like when a dog and a cat hang out, they like one another. So the upside is this is actually very validating for the tower of the Nyy'xai, of the traveling tower, of the magical token. It actually increases its strength because it's doing what it's supposed to be, which is connecting to other heroic people, finding the heroic in them, and attaching. The attachment itself, though, is both intoxicating to the other person, I mean to you, to the Nyy'xai, so it's important to note that sometimes they just do it to feed because it feels really good to do that. And they can put people up into pedestals they shouldn't. So always the Hidden Grove Guardian should make sure they have done the ritualistic things required to get that connection. So that's important to protect the Nyy'xai. And then also make sure the Nyy'xai doesn't become villainous or vampire, is that humans will often, and the Nyy'xai just have to deal with this, they just have to deal with this. The feeling humans get that comes from that Hidden Grove feeling is so incredible they're going to want it all the time. And that favor is not designed to be given all the time. Even if a Nyy'xai was connected with an other to where there was like a constant sort of inspirational spiral dance, still the Zhai comes intermittently. Similar to the Ji of the Nyy'xai, it's designed to be intermittent. It's not designed to be constant like that. So because it's so incredible and then goes away, it's so incredible and goes away, that has a heavy addictive quality. And so Nyy'xai had to be careful that they don't get addicted themselves to the process, that they don't get other people addicted on purpose, and that they don't get other people addicted accidentally. That's something to watch out for. But this does not mean it's a bad power, it just means it has to be used correctly. And this does not have to be just, for example, with like an intimate relationship or with a significant other or sexual or anything like that. This quality is felt by any human. Nyy'xai make any human feel like they've been particularly singled out for blessing. And this company, that magical bird of light, this company gets very addictive, and there can be a desire to want to cage it. So that's one thing that the Hidden Grove Guardian has to watch out for, is that the grove does not get caged. That's part of the job. And not to cage others with it. Because the Nyy'xai have a powerful ability to sort of use the blessing to make someone love-struck in a almost purely energetic way, in a personally energetic way, because it feels like you're lucky now, and if you lose it, you lost luck. So the Hidden Grove Guardian should only give her luck blessing when it's appropriate, meaning the person's worthy, and also she should not use it as a sort of like thing to be given or taken away for her own capricious needs. It should be for noble needs, because it's a very, very powerful ability. I mentioned this already, but I'll highlight it again, is understanding. Because the Zhai is hidden, it's so unique, it moves in such unusual ways, it's so temporary, yada yada yada, it's so specialized, that there's a heavy testing of the wisdom, of the deftness of metaphysical touch that usually only a masterful Nyy'xai can do, to prove that they won't fuck it up, that they will not mess it up when they touch it. That was a big theme of Avatar, was her making sure that this creature who she felt an attraction for, her Nyi, liked that, but she was taking it into ever and ever increasing sacred resources that, if they were compromised, would be irretrievable. You couldn't come back from that. However, that was a risk, and it came close to happening. It came close to actually that risk did come to pass, but it didn't. And what did come to pass? She aligned herself with the Nyy'xai hero and made the complete Nyy'xai storyline that was necessary for that whole tribe to win. So it was good that she did that. It was good that she didn't let anyone but the right person find out where it was. But then she was also right that when she thought that it was the correct person to let them know. For example, he was starting the Nyy'xai character with some nobility, but he was a bit chilled up. He was a bit zai'd up. So as the story goes on, he was being brought out, his conduct was being called to. Nyy'xai has that ability. It can lock Nyy'xai into code of conduct. It can make promises. It can get Nyy'xai to commit to promises. It's a very powerful ability. So that was good because what he had to do in order to keep seeing the sacred the grove within herself and within the actual physical one that was related to her tribe, he stepped over thresholds which he could not go back. Her Nyy'xai now held him accountable, like it has a lock on. So the downside is this is why it's a double vulnerability. She's not at risk, as is the tribe's sacred grove. But that vulnerability has now been used to lock onto Nyy'xai. That's a very powerful ability Nyy'xai has. Its vulnerability can force honorable conduct of Nyy'xai that sometimes doesn't want to. It can make it because it will literally have its heroic journey just cut off. It'll decapitate its heroic trajectory if that kind of Nyy'xai thing is pulled on it and doesn't answer it. So that's a power Nyy'xai has. It has the ability to call for that and demand it. Similar to the way that Nyy'xai Alpha do with the night coming in. Except here it tends to be very much like the Avatar, a lot more secret agent. It's a secret agent showing proper conduct, a druid showing proper conduct, Merlin showing proper conduct to be allowed where he needs to go. But this also brings in the quality of the adaptiveness, is that there is a need to bring resources together, to connect resources. So in your dream, the boy, your family, the possible friend, the sorceress, the creatures, there's a lot of you jumping from different areas and knowing it's all related to another, and then how do I connect it properly? Nyy'xai. What is the virtuous way to connect things to make the heroic storyline to make it go the way it should go? And then also in Avatar, that was a theme as well, which is she needed his strength. She needed the strength of the doctor, and she needed the strength probably that pilot. And she did. Her conduct and the way she did things and showing them the beauty of her people when she thought it was correct. It demanded they do the right thing, and then their Nyy'xai was unlocked. Even I think the pilot may have actually been Nyy'xai, maybe in the Nyy'xai Sigourney Weaver Nyy'xai. But still, it is the values-based channel, and Nyy'xai has an ability to basically say sacred value is in play. And it's interesting what really captured it. For the scientist, that pilot lady, and also for the Nyy'xai guy, was the uniqueness of it. It's a very neat thing. The uniqueness of it, the one-of-a-kindness of it. This forest is so unique that it'll be destroyed. Like, remember, there's a thing they said, like you destroyed all the unique forests on your world. You destroyed all your sacred groves, but we have not done that. And so I'm trying to protect it with all my secret agent powers I have, with all my huntress powers that I have. And that called out to them, and then they had to do the right thing. She transferred their allegiance. That's crucial. And it again has a lot to do with the secret agent kind of thing. She basically turned all three of them. She turned them to actually then being on that tribe's side, and correctly so. But she had to be very, very careful about that, and was risky. It almost cost her everything, but it did work out. So you can see the danger of it, but also the necessity. Just a word that came to my spirit's little alliteration is hidden hopes and covert convictions. This has a lot to do with the Nyy'xai showing their true colors. Often, for example, Nyy'xai in life will take the tack because they don't see what they need, and often it's not there. That they're very cagey, they're very wash and wear, very adaptable, so they can get involved in very stormy things, revolutions, music scene, arts, visionary stuff, conflict, danger zones, and there can be a amoralness to it. As if, well, the energies are moving like this, so I'm really just surfing them. And that's true. up to a point. Sometimes when things are moving that mercurially, which often the Nyi Alpha, the Nyy'xai experience, that is true, but that there is always some value that must be maintained. There is not complete relativism. And so for the Nyy'xai, that is done with Zhai. So all Nyy'xai, many of them sometimes feel this is dead in them or has gone dormant or isn't there or is not valuable. It's not true. Is when you are seeing noble conduct taking place and it is having difficulty, that's going to tickle you. And that is a tickle to the Hidden Grove Guardian to show her cards. Not necessarily to everyone in the environment, but to that person. To that good person who's struggling. To give a blessing to let that person get by. So one thing that Nyy'xai can really use their caginess to advantage is they can give blessings through conduits that other people couldn't get through, or also are not seen because they're seen to be smashed. I'll tell you, Hidden Grove Guardian, High Stakes Priestess too, but she was Hidden Grove in the beginning and then she was High Stakes at the end. I actually want to mention her in the High Stakes one, was the character from Pan's Labyrinth. It's a Nyy'xai, I think I'm not sure what she is, she's a helper, she's around there, she's one of the main characters, is the Nyy'xai female. And she basically is sympathetic to the resistance. But she's powerless in that camp to do anything directly. But she does everything she can to lend succor and support and validation and heroic just comfort to keep those who are basically outgunned at that moment going, finding ways to give them something. And so that's very much a Hidden Grove Guardian. She shows that nobly, very much so, at every opportunity. Every moment that it comes up that she knows she can give help. It's at risk, but she's going to use that risk-taking ability of a Nyi Alpha. She's going to do it. She's going to continually put herself at risk under watch. That's what the Hidden Grove Guardians will do. They'll be in the actual danger zone. They'll be behind enemy lines. They'll be in the enemy's camp, giving support. So that's a very powerful ability to have, but sometimes it confuses Nyy'xai, like Nyy'xai, of like, I feel kind of like tricksy. You know, and so that's why. So it's a noble ability if it's used in that way. It doesn't have to always be that covert. It can be often used in humor. Humor is sort of a overt covert, to where in conversation you can dance from here to there and you can support those that you think are better people who are saying things that are more noble and virtuous and of better conduct. And those that aren't, you know, you can dance around them, you can tease them, mock them. That actually gets a little into righteous intervener, so I don't want to go there too much. But that will be stimulated by the Zhai. The Zhai will decide of a Nyy'xai. You're being playful with your Nyi, but the Zhai will decide, I'm going to play nicer with some or others. I'm going to play at all with some and not with others. So that has a lot to do with the Hidden Grove Guardian. So basically the hidden hopes for a beautifully harmonious, productive world should come up if it shows up. It doesn't mean she has to actually put herself in danger of being caught, but she has to do, or it, whatever, the Nyy'xai has to flyby. That's part of the Hidden Grove Guardian, is the flyby blessing. So you don't necessarily have to land forever and get caught, but you should land, give the boy or whoever it is the sacred token to help him not fly away. And your power is the fact that the sorceress, for this example, won't be able to catch you. That's your power. But you also, as a Hidden Grove Guardian, are supposed to keep landing and give blessings as you can. In a video game, the Nyy'xai will get points mainly for staying in the air and not getting caught. That's a big part, is not being trapped. But the next thing you want to do after not being trapped is land and get blessings, healings, when you are on a tree that heals you, or land on someone else and make them temporarily the tower of the tree and heal them with something, a blessing. Teleporting. This is actually similar to the fact that it moves, but this is another quality very much related to the fairy tradition of the Celtic mythology, is once a person has been taken to the Hidden Grove, it moves. So they get teleported. So you take someone into the Hidden Grove and then it disappears, the Hidden Grove reappears somewhere else, and then they come out. This also increases the cagey heart quality of the Nyy'xai, but it's actually what makes them so cool. It's kind of like an underground railroad of love. They have an ability to actually give love to people and sort of like teleport them out of bad situations into other good situations without directly transversing that negative environment. So they can kind of like, come in, give a love hug, and teleport the person out to a place that is more conducive, which is a really cool power. So love blinking. Another quality is a gathering. Because the Nyy'xai has Ni over the Xai, in the Xai, for example, we mentioned they spend a lot of time in their tower, and then they go out to gather stuff to bring back to the tower. So that relationship is still there, except the difference is you being sort of the avian creature primarily, the gathering takes up most of the time. So I would call it almost like a sacred nest. So sacred nesting. So a large quality of Hidden Grove Guardian, since the spirit force creature comes first, is constantly going out to gather magic tokens in the world to bring back, to gather into a little bubble of magical, sacredness. So yeah, so you can think of it like a tree, and then within the tree, the heart of the tree kind of be like the nest, and that's where all the cool things that you get in your journeys you bring back. This actually has a lot to do with the Kender. Remember those creatures? Yeah. Is they like to gather all kinds of cool things in their journey and bring it back to their home. So their home is like a world tour. So they basically, even that they travel even they're not traveling. So basically, oftentimes the tokens of a nesting for the Hidden Grove Guardian will be magical blessings, both given, received, exchanged in the travels. So traveling wide and far and getting blessings and giving them.
That's why Nyy'xai have such a collage quality to
yes.
them, especially in their art and their decoration.
Very much.
Home decor,
and also
the way they dress.
Completely. Collage, very much a collage effect, and also concurrent with that, a wanderlust. Yeah. So very much they want to kind of like connect all the things in the world, and they want to connect it all in their presentations and their own ritual relics for themselves. A power they have to get Xi to do what it's supposed to do is that they can lure Xi. Sometimes when Xi is approached directly, it is too suspicious. So one thing that the Hidden Grove Guardian can do is it can present a sacred grove in a way that doesn't frighten. This may sound funny, but those who have Xi understand for themselves and the way they react to in the world, that people sometimes flinch from the beautiful authenticity of Xi. So sometimes that authenticity is required for the blessing to be achieved, but it needs to be sort of worked in cleverly, almost like a comedian doing improv. You need to introduce certain subject material into your routine, but you need to do it in such a way that has a sort of a cleverness, a wit to it, a dance quality, so that carries people along and they realize, oh, I feel moved. So it's a different way of moving them, say, than a Xi would, where the moving comes direct from the beginning. The movingness of the authenticity kind of happens while being transported, while being captivated by the Ni sort of syncopated dance. The syncopated rhythm that Ni has, particularly because it's an objective interpretive power, that syncopated rhythm can have a very intoxicating quality. So you can intoxicate people with virtue. So you kind of like get them drunk, and then when they're drunk, you actually slip them a virtue Mickey.
There's kind of a tricky thing with a lot of Xi users, especially Nyy'xai. We've had difficulty in like getting them to even see their Xi or admit it, or all this stuff. It sounds either like old-fashioned or like idealistic or too vulnerable, yeah, or something like that. Can you maybe address that a bit?
Well, that is a large. That's basically this whole film is kind of address that
because it's hidden.
Yes,
and be hidden from yourself.
It was be hidden from yourself, but also more importantly, is that the hiding of it is a biologically evolved strategy. So that's why, is because it feels very correct. It is correct to hide it temporarily. But one thing that the Nyy'xai are going to feel, and those who that hide their Xi and suppress it, this clearly shows, is they have an innervated quality to them. So those that are getting their Xi blessed regularly and are using their Xi to bless others that they think are cool, this poignancy that could be seen as sappy gives them a great deal of power. For example, you take someone like Marion Cotillard, who has very strong Xi. She looks like a cagey creature. She plays cagey in many, many movies like Inception and Public Enemies, and that looks like in real life she would be difficult to grab her Xi if she didn't think that you were a good person. She would use her Ni to be too quick for you. Helen Mirren, Same thing, excellent Nyy'xai, but she's going to use her knee to make her Nyy'xai too quick for you. You're not going to capture it or grab it, mess with it if she doesn't want you to. However, they believe deeply in certain causes, and when they do believe deeply in those causes, they will speak about them in such a way that shows that. If they cry, so be it. If people know that they feel that way, so be it. And if anything, it just fires their knee, and often their Z and Vi up if you mock it. It gives them a tremendous amount of power. That's one thing, is they'll have a tremendous amount of strength that Nyy'xai want. So Nyy'xai don't have that. They also are going to not have that kind of vigor. They will not have the energetic vigor, and that's because that massive pump, that sacred hidden growth, they don't have access to it, and you need it. And if you have it, you'll know the difference. Trust me, a Nyy'xai who's got that packing in her heroic backpack, totally different creature. That's a creature who can handle a dark sorceress, who can handle dark days and dark nights. Nyy'xai without that, yeah, they're cagey, they're quick, they do Ni and Z double barrel, but at the end of the day, they're scared. They're scared all the time. They think being sappy is going to make them weaker, more vulnerable, and thus be more afraid, but doesn't. It actually makes you find the friend you're supposed to find, and it makes you actually give love to those that need it, and you feel loved in return. You feel like you have a reason to be there. So you are actually supercharged. So it doesn't make you vulnerable so much as reachable. And so a lot of Nyy'xai who don't have that, they can have sort of a dead inside feeling. And you are if you're not allowing yourself to actually be in that sacred grove and allowing a few trusted, special, vetted others to be in there as well. But when you do, it will feel like a kind of validation, a loving of yourself that without it, there's always this disquiet, because Nyy'xai is designed to be in equilibrium. So basically without that, the equilibrium is off. That's bad normally. But for any mojo that actually has an equilibrium, a compass bearing as one of the top 2 powers, then that means you're basically rattled all the time. Yeah. So you think you're being clever, because you see Nyy'xai sometimes that do that in the interviews. They think they're being clever and they're showing things, but they look all jittery.
Neurotic.
They look neurotic, like they're like a nervous wreck, just like panicky. So those who have Nyy'xai, yes, their heart's a little more exposed. They're still cagey and awesome, but they look like they actually feed in life. And a fed heroic creature is always more formidable. And so for Nyy'xai, you have to feed that way. So that's what's required. Find those situations of people who are deserving of that blessing. Give that blessing, and take, which is going to come up next, take the righteous intervening that will naturally follow from that. Because you will be called on to do stuff. That's right, action will be required, eventually commitment will be required. So that can make Nyy'xai go, it seems like Nyy'xai is a slippery slope to commitment. And it is, but it's commitment that you want, only natural law, proper commitment that goes all the way down your pipeline. But that is supposed to happen, and if the Nyy'xai is not on board, then basically the heroic mining operation is in trouble right out of the gate. So you want to have that, and when you get it, others may see you as vulnerable. The old you used to be may see you as vulnerable. You won't feel vulnerable. You will not feel vulnerable because you're mainly noticing your heroic connection to the storyline. Before it felt like you were an NPC. You're right. You weren't as much in danger of being taken out by the dragon. That's because you're nobody. You're not even in the game. Once you step up, start taking on dark sorceresses and dragons and whatnot, and choosing good friends over bad friends and friends in danger and so forth, yeah, there's risks. There's all kinds of things that go with that. But that's the juice. That's the joy. And when you get it right, you'll be satisfied in a way that only comes from doing that. Only from doing that. So.